Hello and welcome to Austin Real Estate Experts, where each week we discuss Austin's dynamic real estate market and showcase some of Austin's finest homes. We're here at Parks at West Haven, a wonderful D.R. Horton community here in southeast Georgetown. Low tax rate, highly affordable homes, planned unit development with amenities on a gorgeous, gorgeous fall day. So happy to be here with you all. And gosh, we were just talking about some of the headlines and the doom and gloom. Should we or shouldn't we? Is now the right time? Interest rates have gone up a little bit, although, heck, I think if you look at an average over the last 25 years, it's close to 7%. So we're not really in uncharted territory. We're just not in territory we've been in much recently.
And this all had to happen. You know, it's so important that the message is correct, because when you turn the news on, depending on who's talking, it could be, you know, we're in for the biggest depression in the last 100 years, or it's a mild recession. And, you know, we needed this to happen because we could not continue with prices increasing as fast as they were, right?
Agreed.
That's right.
And rates being as low as they were probably. So this is truly just, I think, Janet, you said normalization.
Yes.
And getting back to where we need to be. I think it sort of stunned some consumers out there.
It did.
But truthfully, Matt, this is a great time to buy.
It really is. You know, the message that sells is the big change. The steep change in the market is the clickbait. It's the stuff that draws people into the stories. But really, it's a great time to buy.
You know, you've got to think about all those first-time home buyers out there and all those people, frankly, that needed a loan to appraise that couldn't buy in the last year and a half or so. And those people should all be jumping in right now.
That's right. That's right. You know, what happened over the past couple of years was unhealthy. I mean, it was really a bit toxic.
Yeah.
We had multiple offers. We had people that were just beat up by the process, having to pay sometimes 10%, maybe even 15% on the most affordable properties over asking price. So think about that. Median price, let's just round down to around 400. At 400, if you had to pay 10 to 15% over, you were paying anywhere from $40,000 to $60,000 over asking price.
There were some 20 and 25% out there that I can recall also,
Oh,
with
yeah.
35 offers
Oh yeah, I mean,
the first weekend.
So really toxic. And the way that we structure offers, it's generally blind in that scenario, highest and best type scenarios. So people are just taking a stab at where they think it's going to go, and that in itself, you know, led to a little bit of the escalation.
It did.
Now, things are a little different. We've got a little bit of supply. We're still technically a seller's market with about a 3-month supply of homes. So that is, take the number of listings that are out there available in the marketplace and divide that by the rate of sales each month, and that gives you the supply. Right now, that's about 3. We call it a seller's market for anything less than about 6 months, and a buyer's market if there's more than 6 months supply. We're nowhere near that. We're half of that.
Right.
It's just that we went from, you know, going 200 miles an hour to 55 to 60 miles an hour in a very short period of time. And so that deceleration in the marketplace felt like something different than it really was.
Right.
I think a lot of us that have been doing this for several years, I've been doing this about 21 years. I know all of you guys have been doing about the same. Not that it's normal for us, but I've been through a few cycles. That's
Right.
what we call it, right, in home building or even
Right.
in real estate in general,
That's right.
cycles. But for a new buyer, a first-time buyer, even a move-up buyer who's never experienced that,
Right.
it can be so scary. So what you see, or at least my on-site see today, it's more fear. It's like, I'm kind of afraid I'm going to make a bad decision.
That's right.
And one of the agents yesterday, we had a luncheon yesterday, said, I tell my customers, don't talk to anybody. Don't tell them that you're buying a home, because they will rob you of that joy. They will tell you why it's not a good time. And I'm here to tell you, as your agent, it's the best time to buy. So I think whether it's the headlines, personal influencers who may tell you now's not a great time to buy, I think you have to be really cautious about the source of information. Again, a great time for the show to be back on, so we can talk about some of those things openly and transparently, and hopefully make someone feel more comfortable today about going out, and whether that's talking to their realtor, talking to an on-site agent, knowing that it's a great time to buy a new home.
Yeah,
right.
and John, I'm sure you'll touch on this, being our mortgage professional, but
Because your job's so easy right now.
that's right. Yes. But I mean, are you telling folks that they can always refi in a year or two if rates settle down some?
Well, for sure. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. So number one, when you've got a buyer who may be thinking, I'm going to wait for the rates to go down. Well, guess what? Those 30 offers that you were getting on that first weekend when you were listing your home when the rates were low, that's what's going to happen again. So the competition's going to come back. So there's no guarantee that rates will go down where they could refinance. But if they buy at, let's say 7% and rates go to 9 or 10, they're going to be happy they got 7. If they buy at 7 without the competition, rates go to 5, they can refinance. They're going to be excited to get that lower rate. So there's a few ways to look at it. I think we're really having some good conversations with our first-time buyers, and we're having longer conversations, and we're having more conversations, and there's more education to go into the process. I think now we didn't have time to think a year ago. The house just got listed. We got to have an offer in the next 4 hours, and there was no time to really even digest what was happening.
It's just resetting expectations, really it is, because what we're seeing is people who were maybe shopping for a house a year ago, but couldn't buy, but they were looking at a 2.99% rate, and now they might be looking at one that's double that, are just getting kind of sticker shock when they look at that payment. But then what we have to do is take it one step further in setting expectations and saying, well, what can you afford per month? Maybe it's a slightly smaller house, but whatever it is, now's still a time to get in, because prices are going to start appreciating again for sure, right?
That's
We
true.
know that.
And let's look at this with a little bit of data. We talked about a $400,000 home as an example earlier, and that someone might have had to pay $440,000 for that home. Well, maybe today, if the home's been on the market for 21 days instead of multiple offers in 3 days, maybe you're getting that home for $390,000. So you have a $50,000 spread. Well, even with higher interest rates, the fact that you've gone in and secured this home at a $50,000 difference than maybe somebody paid a year ago, even if the interest rates are higher, it totally offsets.
Right.
And more importantly, it offsets with a balance that is in a great position and leaves those people many more options in terms of being able to resell, get into something different later.
Right.
I mean, they're much better position. Not to mention the fact that, yes, there will probably be future opportunities to work on that interest rate and reduce it.
And unless, if as far as sellers go, unless they've owned that home for less than 2 years, it's still worth a whole lot more than what they paid for it. It may not be worth every bit of what it would have been worth 12 months ago, but it's still a fantastic appreciation that they've seen.
And right now, and this isn't a huge segment of the market, but cash buyers are poised to really create some wealth.
Right.
Because if you can buy right now, you're maybe 10% or 15% of people ahead of people that just bought to some degree, because there's just that little window. And we're not talking about values having gone down. It's just the fact that there's not so much competition that you don't have to pay a premium to get into the market.
Look at all those, think about all those cash buyers last year, right? We had a lot of cash buyers that were investors coming into the Austin MSA. And they were cash, not because rates were high, but because it took cash to win offers when somebody was looking at 35 offers. Well, those folks all need to come back and bring cash now.
That's right.
And buy at a substantial savings over where they could have last year. Sorry, John.
That's okay. And I think we have to also remember healthy appreciation is typically 3 to 5%, right? So we had some 15 and 20% appreciation, maybe more in some areas, maybe a little less, but that could not sustain, as you touched on. So I talk to my clients about the time that they're in the market, not timing the market. It's really important. So the duration of time that they own the home, that's what's important. If they're trying to buy a house today and sell it in 6 months or a year, that might be that's going to be risky, right? We don't know if it's going to go up, but over time, 3, 5, 7 years from now, it's going to be a great investment because this area is growing. We know how many jobs companies are bringing jobs to Austin, Greater Austin, and Texas in general. So this market is not going to get any smaller.
It's kind of like the stock market, but I think it's even safer than the stock market in that you're leveraged better. But what I'll tell people when I'm talking to real estate investors is sometimes go back 10 years in any community in this country. I would challenge you to find a community or a home that was actually worth less 10 years later. Right?
Yep.
And you could maybe even dissect that even further, and it may be less time than that. But we don't speculate. We don't speculate on a year's time. I wouldn't suggest anybody do that in real estate, but give it a few years, and it's real hard to lose.
Yeah. I don't think we ever have speculated like, oh, okay, here's what you're going to gain in a year, and we're cautious as on-sites. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
That's right.
But to your point, for years when I sat in the model, I would tell my folks, hey, 3 to 5% a year is healthy. That's why people have always invested in real estate, and not just new homes, pre-owned homes. The housing market is what drives the U.S. economy. It always has. We are built on the American dream of home ownership.
That's right.
I think if people kind of keep that in mind, like this is why we're doing it, and you can, start creating generational wealth by buying homes. And anyway, I just feel like you got to quit looking at the short-term gain.
That's right.
And let's go back to looking at what it should be.
And when I first got into new home sales before general real estate, I had a VP of sales who got in front of a team and said to us, you need to, and this was 20 years ago, you need to, when you're educating clients that come in, you need to remember to tell people, particularly first-time home buyers, because they may not realize this. What they're doing is not really spending money on a home, they're investing in an automatic savings account.
Yes.
And that's what she said. She said, call the house an automatic savings account, because that's really what it is. You got to live somewhere. Yep. It might as well be somewhere where you're investing in yourself. And it's true. It's the greatest investment of all time, in my opinion.
That's true. And John, you touched on something earlier about jobs in the Austin area. We watch national news sometimes, right? But real estate isn't a national business for consumers. It's a local business, right? You live in the U.S., you live in Texas, you live in Williamson County or Travis County or Hayes or, but we're growing jobs here. We have a healthy economy here. So what you hear on the national news may not be what's happening in our market, right?
And it is jobs, jobs, jobs. We were doing a presentation earlier in the week, and one of the folks that was there presenting just started naming everything, Samsung, Elon. These guys are just building these huge buildings that are going to be full of employees that we don't even have living here yet.
Yes.
That's right.
They got to live somewhere.
So there's all of this that are stabilizing and reinforcing factors for why people should feel good about buying here in the area. And I made some notes on some of the other things we talked about on why people may want to go ahead and buy right now. So one of the things we kind of touched on a little bit, and that was prices. A lot of prices are improved from where they were. Much of that is just related to the trajectory changing from really unhealthy, unsustainable 25-30% growth, and trying to bring the listing prices back down to meet that current trajectory, which is appreciating, but decelerating, not appreciating at as high a rate as it was.
Right.
So there are good buying opportunities now. Maybe you're getting it for a little bit below asking price. The sellers will entertain a good, solid, reasonable offer. I'm not talking about low balls. I don't think anyone, unless their personal circumstances are dire, are interested in giving away their very, very valuable asset.
Right.
But I think you can buy right at this moment.
I like that. The buy right, I think that will resonate with folks.
Yeah.
Again, go back, kind of your media sources. I just did a paper for school. I'm in school. Roll Tide. And I had to take one headline and I had to look at 6 different media outlets, right, on this one particular topic. And for me, it was home building and recession. That's kind of what I Googled. And I did like AP, NPR, MSNBC, Fox, a local station. But it was amazing for me. I do this for a living, right? Mm-hmm. And I go and I read all these articles, and they're all different. Right?
Yes.
They're all different. So to your point, obviously the local news, very different than some of the national news.
Right.
And this idea of normalizing, pricing improvements, it all goes back to Greg's point, which it had to happen. We were all waiting, for this to happen. And I think depending on what you're reading, what you're listening to, will definitely influence how you're going to accept it, right?
That's right.
So
Right.
for me as a home builder, we look at our markets, the markets that we serve. How can we serve them better? I know that's probably contrary to what people think, but we really do serve our communities. And in doing so, it behooves us to look at pricing, whether that's on the resale side or new home competitors, and figure out what can we do to help someone get in a home today.
That's
Right.
Right? And whether that's through a pricing improvement, an interest rate incentive, closing cost incentive, we truly are here to serve, just like you guys are. And so this normalizing and improving, we've been waiting for it too.
Right.
For us, when people come in, goes back to education. Okay, if you think I can take another 200 grand off the price, that's not reality. It's just not. I wish I could. I'd buy 4
You
myself.
still have to pay to build it.
Right, I still have to, I told Greg, we pay every time the developer cranks up a tractor, because then they have hard cost increases,
That's
right? Commodity increases. So it's not just a big bad builder going, hey, I'm gonna mark it up to this. It is truly hard cost. But if we can find that balance, right, to deliver a product to the market, and we find the price, and you can find the market. You guys know when you do. We've done that here at Parks at West Haven for sure, by doing some pricing adjustments. It just makes me feel good
Yeah.
to know that those folks have been maybe waiting 6-9 months and they were outbid, or this thing of buyer fatigue is very real, right?
Yeah, and we've had some buyers, especially first-time buyers, that have thought, well, maybe I should just rent for a while. They've read some of the headlines. Owning will always beat renting.
Always.
And whether you own or whether you rent, you're paying someone's mortgage, right? So
Right.
maybe it
Might as
should
well be
your
yours.
own.
Do you want to build your savings account or someone else's?
Right.
To Greg's point.
That's exactly right. So that's a second reason why now is a good time to buy. Every month that you pay rent, you could be building equity, reducing the loan balance, and accumulating wealth through real estate. And now interest rates are a little bit higher, and as such, the tax benefits, I think, which when interest rates were incredibly low, unless you had a really large mortgage, it was hard to itemize your deductions and have the mortgage interest be enough to be above like standard deductions. But now with rates in the 7% range, you might have 25, 30,000 in mortgage interest, depending on the size of your mortgage, and it's still, by and large, the single biggest tax break that's out there.
That's right.
And people can really take advantage of that now.
That's right. I didn't know you had a CPA background. That's well.
He just
Well,
plays one.
That's right. That's right. Well, and some of the things we're doing too is there are these 2-1 buy downs. We're hearing a lot about this. So the interest rate, the base rate, the note rate over 30 years is set if you get a fixed rate mortgage. Yet the first and second year of that mortgage, there are options to get that rate 2% below the market, below the note rate, and then 1% the second year. So if the note rate's 7%, we start out at 5%. The second year it goes to 6%, and so that interest savings can be $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 over the course of 2 years. It's paid by the seller, so it's either paid by the builder or it's paid by a seller if you're buying a resale. And so it's a great incentive to bring that payment down the first and second year. Still get the tax benefit potentially, or a good tax benefit, yet you don't have to pay the note rate until the third year.
That's a great tool to cushion. Really ideal for people earlier in their careers. Their incomes are going to increase, and it just allows them to step into the payment in a more comfortable way.
And it also works well if your belief is that rates will likely be lower
That's
in
right.
2 years than they are now. And to John's point earlier, nobody knows for sure, but I think that it's common belief out there that we will see some lower rates in the future.
Yeah. The experience that people have now when they close on homes is probably significantly improved now that, we had so much activity
Right.
that we would do our very best as pros to get people to the closing table so that they could close escrow and have a seamless experience. But during the height of the craziness, Kathy, you guys were probably overrun with closings, having to do much more of your business via mobile notaries instead of the face-to-face closing experience that y'all probably would like to have. Having the market get back to stabilization, has that improved the escrow process a little bit?
Now, since it has normalized, we're able to get back to really the roots of what we do best. And our escrow teams, their proactive communication, now they can spend a little bit more time, with all the parties. It's amazing how many people touch a file.
Yeah.
And so our escrow teams, now that their head's above water a little bit, can make the experience even that much better for the buyer and the seller.
So another benefit now to things being normalized is, the mortgage experience, the title experience,
The new home buying experience.
Is much more predictable and personable than it might have been. Much more relationship driven, probably doesn't feel as transactional as the urgency of the market might have made it feel before.
Well, it's kind of funny because we went through a sort of a process where when it first took off, builders still had some inventory, but yet there were still tons and tons of offers on resale homes.
Yeah.
So we were coaching a lot of clients, hey, if you want a stress-free purchase process, let's just go on over to new home builder, like right here.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be competitive. If we get an appointment to sit down at that desk, we're going to write a contract. And then it changed. And then it got the same way with the new home builders. And there was really no place for somebody to have a really kind of nice, smooth experience.
I will tell you, our sales counselors, and we call them sales counselors for a reason. We want them to counsel, educate, help folks figure out what the best options are for them. And if you talk to my counselor, Richard Carrion is one of my counselors here. He's been here 20 years with D.R. Horton Homes.
Wow.
And they actually are all like, we can
Yeah.
finally sit down and help people again. It's not just this kind of the chaos that you
Right.
spoke to. understanding where are you coming from, what are you looking for, what does your family need. So
Your number's up, come on down.
right, it was chaotic at best, and I know that sounds crazy because most people would think, oh, they loved it. Actually, it was just the opposite. It was almost painful because we couldn't do what we've been trained and what we do, I think, intuitively anyway, which is help people. So I love working with Richard. If you ever get a chance to come out and meet Richard, you should.
Yeah, I visited with him off camera for a little bit earlier. Great guy, extremely knowledgeable, knows this community inside and out. We were talking about reasons why now is a good time. Pricing, this is the moment, no doubt. And there are tools like the buy down, but let's don't discount the possibility of refinancing down the road.
for sure.
Gosh, over the last 5 years, you probably did a bunch of refinance transactions.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, title as well.
We did.
Yeah.
And so, what do we say about?
Marry the house, date the rate, divorce the rent.
Divorce the rental. That's right.
I think he added that third
Yeah,
part.
yeah,
I like
that's
it. I like
a new
it.
one.
I like that.
We'll take that.
But it's so true. I can remember, all through the years of owning investment properties, refinancing periodically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really, I think the general rule of thumb, and it varies a little bit, but if you can reduce by a point, it's usually worth refinancing as long as you plan to be there for a little while. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this has been really productive. We talked about 5 different reasons why now is a great time to buy a new home.
Right.
And heck, if you're going to buy a new home, a great place to start would be Parks at West Haven. It's a gorgeous community. Low tax rates, highly affordable homes from the mid 300s. It's wonderful. But whether it's here or somewhere else, we'd love to see you and help be part of your experience. Thank you for looking in on us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next Sunday.